he is a former presidential candidate. You know, when somebody is a former presidential candidate, you don't take them lightly. His name is George Luchiri. 6 degrees.
I can't count.
There are more than 6.
I think so.
Wow. And surprisingly, they're in law. You know,
various aspects of law, and currently I'm doing my second PhD, which I've just finished the first year. I'm going to the US tomorrow to start the second year in my second PhD.
All these degrees are acquired outside the country?
Yes. UK and US.
How many years each?
I can't count, because when I was in the UK, I was a permanent security guard and a grave digger, but then I used that time to go to school. So I was doing parallel stuff. I do work here, weekend here, and then I go to school, and I never sought employment in between. Because of my accent, my Africanism and background, I don't think whether the English law firms wanted to employ me by that particular time. But eventually, of course, I ventured into serious practice.
All right.
Yes.
We know that there's a number of Kenyans who know who you are.
Definitely.
But also there's that part of the population that does not know who you are. So who is George Luchiri?
My name is Luchiri, as you said. I'm from Mumias, and I grew up in this town. Let me just say this. George Luchiri is a chokora, former street boy, a grave digger, former grave digger in England. I worked as a security guard, and then I'm a law professor. And I'm also, let me say, not say a politician, that's the wrong word, but I'm a human rights activist fighting for democracy. And I've been fighting for democracy for a very long time, which people in Kenya do not know, that some of us have suffered for a long time. But I have to take this opportunity also to thank Raila Amolo Odinga for what he did for this country. And the likes of Nyiri Kihoro, Koigi Wamwere, even people like Balala, who have now been forgotten from Mombasa, and the people who are in that group, including myself, who was a stranger in that group because of my background.
You're using that phrase because of the upbringing that you had, and these are people who came up, elitist families, for lack of a better word. Why do you consider yourself an outsider, yet the volume of work that you put in and the commitment that you put in and the sacrifices equals the others?
No, the thing is, I was a policeman. And you know, during the Moise regime, policemen were suspects. And because of the trainings they got, which was an inheritance from colonial mentality, everybody thought that a policeman was just a human being whose work was to maintain law and order. But then also, when I joined, I did not join as an illiterate. I joined after Form 6. And I have to thank Joseph Kamodo, J.J. Kamodo, who took me over as his son for having taken me to Kiganjo. And I have to thank the late Kanyotu. Kanyotu is like everything I have in this world, because he's the man who mentored me when I joined the National Security Intelligence. And he made sure that I became who I am today. So when I joined these people, and that's why I say the stranger, they were like, during Moise time, people are being arrested day and night. How comes this guy has come into us? But then it took them lots of time, and even up to date, they're still not convinced that I was up to any good for them. And I don't blame them either. But they should also know that even in the police, we had humanists. We had people who are God-sent, people who just dropped in there to do work for survival. But they were hardly human beings who wanted to bring in democracy. Of course, the word democracy has no definition. If you define democracy according to Fela Kuti, and you start from the last word coming to the first word, it is crazy demo. So probably that's how I could have defined the police, who are crazy demo instead of democracy, because nobody believed that we would. But if you look at modernly, if you look at the current police force, you look at Kinoti, a superhuman being. You look at Haji, very intelligent and competent. These are all police officers who are also fighting for democracy in this country. So when I was a stranger at that time, I think things have changed. You look at Owino in police headquarters, a superb human being, a humanist, who will tell you the way it is, like I speak myself on TV. Look at Mandela, for example. He was a sergeant in the police. And look at what he did. So I don't want to go too much into that. But people with the police background, at the end of the day, when they take another line, like the late Bishop Alexander Kipsang Muge, who was a corporal in GHU, Putin in Russia, the late Sata in Zambia, and that's how we are. We bring changes.
So you transition from a police officer, and of course, a lot of things happened in between. You go to the UK, a grave digger. That transition to so many people, it does not make sense considering the fact that you probably might have made connections when you were a police officer. Wasn't there such a thing?
I was in jail here. Remember the people who are jailed, the people who investigated the late minister, whom I'm not going to mention. And some people were killed. Some were put in jail. I was one of those who was put in jail. And Smith Hemston was there at hand to smuggle me out of the country. So it was not like I had made arrangements. I didn't know where I was going. All I know is that I was in a cargo Lufthansa airline. And for the first time, I can tell Kenyans what happened at that particular time. I was smuggled, put in Lufthansa airline. I went to, they took me to Germany. Then from Germany, I was designated for being flown to the US. But then I ended up for air transit connection in London. And then things went mayhem. So word came out that that policeman has run away. The Dr. Uko, let me just say, the man who took investigation, who was involved in the intelligence investigation of Dr. Uko, has run away. Heads rolled. So by the time the police were looking for me in my hometown in Mumias, arresting those who were close to me, throwing them in jail, I was miles and miles away. So the question is, when I reached there, what next? You reach into a foreign country, you don't know anybody. You are seeking asylum. I didn't know what the definition of asylum was. And then you become an asylee, asylum seeker in a foreign nation. And you have to start from the scratch, because there you don't have your mother or father who will look for you or hold you. So I had to survive. Right. And as a former street kid here, survival techniques were instincts were in me. So how do I start? If I open my shoes right now and I show you my toes, what I went through winter, how winter just ate my toes, my 1, 2, 3 toes, I think I can count. And with that harshness, I had to do what others do. I met Nigerians. I love Nigerians. People say what they say, but they are a bit smarter than us because they have seen across the globe and they want to bring back to Nigeria what it is. So they told me, what are you doing here? I gave them my story. Yeah. Then the ITN, Independent Television News, broke my story, the Guardian newspaper, and now I became a darling of the press. But then just on the press, because I was telling them a story, which I was gagged now by the system. Right. And now I had to survive, so I met people who are good Samaritans. I was not experienced. I couldn't speak good English there. I didn't know how to cross the road. And the first job was a security guard. And then I ended up in Highgate Cemetery as a grave digger. At first I resented it, because in Luyaland we don't dig other people's graves.
And of course, degrees followed. You ran for, you attempted to run for president.
Yes.
There's this thing about Kenyans living abroad, coming back to the country and seeking a stab at the presidency. Is it the right procedure, or you need to come to the country, at least spend 1 year or even 2 years telling the people your agenda, instead of just coming at the last minute seeking that office, considering that there are people who have been here since time memorial and have been trying to seek the presidency?
Don't you think that's a challenge from a street kid, grave digger, security guard, an academic, coming back with pride and saying that the umbilical cord that came and the placenta that came with me from my mother's womb was of no difference with any of these people? Nobody's born in royalty. Some people here are born to see others going through the same hierarchy. First, we have the colonial legacy and the chiefs and their sons who took over the country. Then you have the Kenyattas, who came from nowhere, who are fighting for freedom of this country, who came in power. Then now we have the legacy of the son of so-and-so taking over and moving along. And then building that status quo, that if you come to Kenya, you have to start from here to reach there. Come on, it's a challenge. I was a policeman, and I'm now a professor of law. I didn't go through the formal education like other people went. I had to go through round. So what makes it different for me from trying to come in this country and trying to be the president, if I can? I came in, and did you want me to be a women rep? I've not changed my sexuality. Secondly, did you want me to be an MCA? I cannot be an MCA. I can't even be a member of parliament.
You're too senior for that.
Not too senior. It's not my calling. My mission and vision is up there, maybe up wherever it is. I will serve this nation, but it's not that I have to be.
All right.
But I have to try. If not, others are there. So it's a matter of trying. Because even right now you have criminals who have come in, learned the art of being a criminal, stolen money. Every time there's an election, they go home to bribe, because it's the usual thing.
All right. When someone reads about you, they see someone who has done a lot in life. And of course, there are those people who say that you're a wealthy man. Are you a wealthy man?
Not at all. What I have is for my soul. And whatever remains little, I share. If I was in the government, maybe I would have stolen, and I would be very wealthy. But I'm very wealthy in academia. And I'm also very wealthy in the Word of God. Because I love God wherever He is. He knows I'm here. But material wealth and my soul are two different platforms. It's my soul that has to be rejuvenated, because this body belongs to this world. Whatever I wear belongs here. I'm not wealthy in terms of materialistic desires, but I'm very wealthy in my spiritual freedom, my spirituality. And that's why I share platforms with the mighty men of God, like Prophet War. He calls me, we eat together. Prophet T.B. Joshua in Nigeria, and then the president of American Baptist Church in Chicago. And I've visited more churches than I've visited schools, because I always seek the Word of God. I'm not born again, don't take me wrong. I'm from the Hare Krishna background. I've also been in Islam. I've also been a Buddhist. So I serve that God who is general God. Apart from this myopic of some people who are deadlocked in the brain with the colonial kind of mentality, who come in and they say, you have to believe this way. Come on, who is the prefect of God? God has no prefect apart from himself.
But some of the people you mentioned, some of the people you associate with in church, they've been accused of brainwashing their followers or their flock. What do you say about that?
Who is a brainwasher and who is an accuser?
We.
Has somebody never talked about you?
Of course.
Have people not even accused me without knowing my other name?
So they're all just accused.
It is just the mystery of life. If you try to do something good, you'll get somebody to talk about it. And if somebody talks about something about you, don't refrain from it. Feel great. Feel good, because at least you are doing something that is trickling the minds of some people. If they blame Prophet Ward, for example, or they blame Prophet T.B. Joshua, this is a human being who came up. Prophet Ward is the most learned scientist in the world with 2 PhDs. And people do not know that. He was the dean of medical school in Chicago Medical State University. He came from Oklahoma University. He went to Tel Aviv University. He's a scientist, very refined scientist, who has made discoveries, who has invented a drug which is FDA approved in America. Americans worship this man because of his knowledge. But if he has lived all that and turned it into the Word of God, I mean, do you want to tell me that he's an insane man? If you look at Prophet T.B. Joshua in Nigeria, why does he have followers? If you look at Jesus himself, how many people blamed Jesus and condemned him even to death? And then later on, what happened? Look at Prophet Muhammad. How many people condemned Muhammad to being a polygamist? He is a man of honor. And if you want to show people, if you want to know that you're a man of honor, people must talk against you. People must say, oh, Kenyatta alikuwa mbeberu, what have you? Is the Kenyatta's not ruling? Does it make Uhuru Kenyatta to have sleepless nights because people are talking of ill of his father? So people must talk. Even me, people talk about me. How many people have called me a conman when I came in? How can a policeman, a street kid be an academia? But do I care? I'm doing my second doctorate. Have I asked them that I should be doing it?
Right. So, going forward, there's a lot that is happening in the country currently. We have devolution. There are those who feel that not enough is being done to strengthen devolution, but those who feel that the national government is doing enough to fight for devolution and ensure that counties are able to deliver services to the citizenry. National Assembly and the Senate are currently locked in a stalemate over the Division of Revenue Bill. We know what that is doing in the counties. What sort of a direction as a country should we take?
First of all, I'm a federalist. Having read law in the US and UK and having been a lawyer, being a lawyer even there right now, practicing and teaching, the system we have is 150 behind the US system of federalism. Because the myopic or the architects of devolution are people who copied and pasted and then influenced Kenyans to follow them so that they could be seen to have done something. They're not people who sacrificed, like the founders of the American Constitution, who went to Pennsylvania and sat into a house for 2 years trying to draft the Constitution, which came up only in 8 pages, I think. Kenyan one is 250 something. Now, when you look at the hijacking and the metamorphosis between the county government and the national government, the disparity is great. All I'm saying is this: let us come in as experts and help this country to rebuild this devolution. Because when it comes to spending, when it comes now to acquisition of funds from the federal, from the government reserve, this funding is not pegged on anything. In the United States, the state of Maryland, for example, if it wants to appropriate funds from the federal government, they have to come up with a proposal. That proposal has to be debated in the state government assembly in Maryland, which is the headquarters of Maryland, and the state legislative assembly has to go back to the people and ask the people, we want this kind of infrastructure, we need to appropriate this amount of money. This is the amount, this is the amount that you have actually collected from state taxes, because they pay twice, both state and federal taxes. Now, what do you want us? Give us direction on what to go. So they will come up, debate, and people talk in assemblies. They can even go to court to stop some of the things. Then now they go to central bank, central government, federal government, and say, look, we have collected taxes of, let me say, $2 billion.
Yes.
But we need to build highways, or we need to reconstruct infrastructure. Now, this is what you have. What can you give us? Then the federal government will sit down, the Senate and the Congressional Committee on Appropriation of Funds. They will sit down and they will look into the efforts made by the state, and they'll say, okay, in this case then, let us give them this amount based on how much taxes have been collected there and how much taxes has been collected in the state government level and in the federal level. Then we shall give them funds pegged on the following conditions. Right. Number one, if they have to build a freeway, it has to go within the federal commerce uniformity. If the width of the road is going to traverse into the state to another state, it has to have the same specifications. Right. Then they will monitor that, and then after that, they will also have to do what you call the identification approach of federal spending and federal grant that have been given to state for accountability. But here, a governor will come up and will say, oh, we want this, pesa mashinani. But what are you doing in your county? What revenues are you collecting?
They're not giving reasons, and the revenue collection is also low. Of course, the Auditor General has raised that issue a couple of times. We do thank you very much. We are pressed for time. I wish we had more time to discuss matters of war against graft, but I know, God willing, since you're a man who believes in God, we might have some time in the future.
Thank you.
George Luchiri, thank you very much for joining us on the program. All right, we are taking a short break, but when we come back, business news.